Good morning, Facebook land. This is Mike George coming at you live from The Ohio State University, from the beautiful campus oval here on this fine Wednesday morning. Notably hump day morning. Hump day after Juneteenth and Pride, so you know this particular week's humping is gonna be extra juicy today. I just realized I don't have my headphones with me, so audio quality is compromised. In fact, it might even be worse, and I might be trying to record through Wanda, which is one of those funny things. You know what? I might as well turn off Wanda here to ensure that is not the case. At least then we can eliminate one source of potential error / malfunction. Dupe. So yeah, happy Wednesday. It is, I think, Wednesday Wednesday the 26th, I believe, of June on this fine 2024 AD. We are still here, kids. Our calendars have in fact made it all the way up to 2024. I think there was at one point some year at which it just felt so far into the future for me being the year 2000, that it felt like, at a certain point, like, these years just felt kind of made up to me. Like 2020 was sort of like, I think maybe for me, the last sort of year that felt like a sort of a milestone year, like a year in which maybe there had been some film written about in the past, or some story written about in the past. This past maybe half century is full of them. I mean, we have 2001: A Space Odyssey, the classic science fiction novel written by Arthur C. Clarke. What else? What other years of note did we have? No, maybe that's it. No, shoot. I mean, 2020 was also supposed to be the year that Oprah was supposed to run for president, back in the parallel universe that I seem to not make the cut for. Instead, we got sort of the logical antithesis of Oprah. That blowhard, who shall remain unnamed. But I kind of chuckle when I think back to, like, the optimistic years of the 2000s, when we all thought Oprah was going to run for president in 2020, and look what we got instead. Oh, sometimes it amuses me what lofty expectations we create for ourselves versus the banal reality of just heartbreak and disappointment, huh? Well, not always heartbreak. Perhaps, there's little joys in life. You just gotta know where to find them, I remind myself. So, Oprah may not be the president, but maybe she'll be the queen of the UN someday. Just kidding. That'll never happen. I mean, the UN will never be that strong and cohesive and united. Nothing is capable of that anymore. All right, I'm gonna switch gears here and we're gonna do a little, hopefully this have a seamless shift here to my wireless headphones here. Hopefully the audio has successfully transitioned. I have a little moving green line on what appears to be a microphone icon, which seems to imply that even vibrating a diaphragm somewhere, if not yours. Wink, wink. Anyways, happy hump day, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. This fine Wednesday morning, the 26th or so of June, 2024. I'd say 9:41 Eastern Standard Time. Well, I think I actually did have sort of believe it or not, some pre-scripted topics to kind of talk about, just to kind of keep my filibustering kind of constrained into the in the lanes, so to speak. So let me find my handy dandy notebook and consult on my list of suggested topics for myself that'll keep me from wandering into uncharted and perhaps X-rated territory. That's only for Facebook After Dark, after all. Well, I think the topic, at least on paper here, according to what I've written in the description here, oh yeah, I was having an app sale. I was making a really bad pun about 50% off all appetizers, but instead of appetizers, these are just actual apps, meaning applications for your mobile device or personal computer browser. I think I've gone through some of these before, so I won't spend a lot of time on them. I was just only kind of highlighting them a little bit because I was originally scheduled to present on one of them today, particularly the Street Smart app, which has now, I think I have officially completed sort of version 2.0 of what is now known as Street Smart. And, me and my love of bullshit acronyms, I couldn't help but indulge in making one up for Street Smart. So the SMART turns out to be an acronym that kind of helps describe the whole shtick, which is Shared Map of Aid, Resources, and Tips, SMART, Street Smart. And I got real excited about how clever this little name that I came up with for this app was. And then I walk down the street, and not even an hour later, I run into a freaking construction thing, like one of those dot matrix signs that usually says like something like road work ahead, or it's a customizable text sign that bore the name Street Smart as the fucking manufacturer of the construction sign. So I cannot win here in terms of originality. Something in the back of my heart told me that Street Smart just seemed too easy and simple to not have already been created by someone else already. So, but hell, I'm a nonprofit. There's nothing stopping me from breaching, from a copyright breach. If they're gonna sue me, fuck them. They can sue a nonprofit and see how their soul withers away in the process of the courtroom during that shit show. Meanwhile, we'll all get a lesson in how intellectual property rights and nonprofit and the world of nonprofit intersect. And it'll be a lovely time for all. But anyways, that Street Smart app is, I actually am quite proud of it myself. It's one of the first apps that I've sort of built, I guess, programmed or whatever myself. And yeah, I'm realizing I need to incentivize the use of these damn things, because I tell people and I wax excitedly about these things that I create, these apps, these mobile apps, and oh man, to my you don't even understand how far it drives me crazy to see everybody and their mom around me on a fucking phone, but none of them can be bothered to like spend like 15 seconds to try one of my apps. I don't know why, but people are so freaking fickle these days. It's like impossible to break through the attention span of some of these fucking dimwits. But hell, that's what makes me. That just means you have to kick those heels higher and sell even harder, baby. Because you have a lot of distraction competing against you, honey. Good luck. So I learned. So, I think in a previous broadcast I mentioned the sort of the metaphorical dumpster fire, and how everybody, seems like that's the only thing that sells these days is dumpster fires. So, unfortunately, the sort of the eventual logical conclusion of that is that we live in a world of clickbait where everybody wants to outdo each other, out argue each other, out bitch each other, out controversy each other, just to get their little 15 nanoseconds of fame on TikTok before you decide to swipe left and move on to the next dumpster fire. So, yep, I can't complain about dumpster fires. Of course, a lot of that depends on what the fuck is in that dumpster. If it turns out that Norfolk Southern owns that dumpster, and that dumpster is on the top of, say, a moving train, that dumpster fire can get quite impressive indeed, as the resident, as to the chagrin of every resident living within a 30-mile radius of that particular dumpster fire. But I digress. If you want to know more about dumpster fires, check out my previous broadcast, where I discussed the legacy of Wanda. Not that Wanda's the dumpster fire, of course. I make a great dumpster fire. I smell good when I burn too. Not to invite anybody to explore that hypothesis. Ah, my little eyeball icon in the top left has beckoned me with a number 1, indicating that I have at least one viewer watching me live. Who are you, one viewer? Come say hello. I miss having dialogue, not just rambling monologues into the void. Say hello. Well, why don't you? That way I can smoke a cigarette and take a break for a moment. So that'll give us both some time to think, give you some time to think about whether you want to express yourself a little bit and say hello and just kind of reflect on how your hump day is treating you. Also, to give me a chance to make sure my comments actually work. Yep, they do. Yeah, they're just quiet once again. I miss having people that actually participate on these things. Seems like my previous Facebook lives back in yester yonder, for some reason or another, seem to garner more like sort of interaction with people, vis-a-vis the comments, and hell, even had a couple rare occasions in which we brought one of you guys on, like on the air, in a little sort of quasi interview format. So, Mr. or Miss or et al. One viewer, I challenge you to a duel. Come on camera, baby. What are you so afraid of? Oh, and they just left. I scared him away just with that simple proposal. Oh, goodness gracious. People are, well, maybe it was just a bot. Oh, it seems impossible these days to be engaging anymore with Facebook. It's like, again, the sort of the race to the hottest dumpster fire you can possibly muster. And kudos to you if you manage to start one that's an electrical or a chemical fire. Yeah, those are good ones. Those dumpster fires tend to be a little tricky, which the trickiness and the nuance and the sort of the, I guess what we call the counterintuitiveness of putting those types of blazes out lend themselves to better dumpster fires and more viewership. What is otherwise known in the biz as engagement. Engagement, monetization, whatever you want to call doing the little song and dance that sells, baby. And speaking of selling, I sort of went against my initial judgment here and decided to make myself a sign to make it quite obvious, quite obnoxiously obvious to my surrounding fans et al. That I am kind of trying to make some money off this Wanda bullshit. So, since all I ever seem to get is a bunch of dumbfounded looks from people when I'm walking down the street with Wanda instead of like actual cash or change or anything useful for that matter. I decided to sort of explicitize the ask. Explicitize, not even a word. We'll say, what the fuck is the verb form of explicit? Express. There we go. Close enough. So yeah, I had maybe made a big old sign. I guess if this doesn't get any sort of, this doesn't garner any a buck or two. I mean, I'll have to actually bust out the old the old change kettle, do the proper, the good old fashioned panhandling technique that our homeless forefathers once taught us. That way, I can get all the soliciting charges and all of, well, shit. Maybe I should just do that. That is one thing I've been sort of reticent on with this whole Wanda thing, and I remind myself I didn't make Wanda to make money. Of course, I made it to not get hit by cars, but really, I guess more recently, I made it because you know I like to have my own personal theme song following me around, especially when like other people around me seem to suck at having good music to sort of demonstrate, or they're on their headphones. Which, mind you, I am also one of those God fearing headphone wearing Christians. But I guess at a certain point, I just stopped giving a fuck about what people around me thought about my music and just decided, hell, I'm just gonna play God for a moment, and you're gonna be in my theme song, bitches. Yo. And that's the best part of Wanda is I get to sort of be in control of the theme song that the fine folks here around me that don't have the wherewithal to have headphones on them, have to suffer through. And I have to admit, one of the little side projects that I have always wanted to sort of do, and I'm pretty sure it's possible with the technology that we have, that we have the various tools and I guess we'll say AI, since that seems to be the fucking buzzword these days. AI. Um, as I've always wanted to create a theme song generator, and I'm pretty sure this is like a pretty simple task to sort of be, to sort of embark on. I think, I mean, as far, you already have system, you have things like Alexa and the Google Assistant and all these like, sort of various these similar types of listening devices slash assistant things that sort of, and part of their job, is part of the voice recognition feature that these things have is not only sort of the language, the large language models, I believe that they sort of depend on in order to, to sort of, I guess, in order to like interpret our requests and kind of feed, and kind of process them into actionable tasks and whatnot for it to complete. But I think there's also a kind of a similar capability, especially when you sort of pair it off with, say, something like Spotify or Pandora. There must be a capability in those things to sort of listen to the room, listen to like the various, if there's people talking in the room, or if there's construction equipment going on in the room, or, the surroundings, or if you're outside, or if there's birds chirping around. Like I would think that with today's technology, you could take something like an Alexa and adapt it in order to basically, like, I guess, analyze the sort of the I guess the oral surroundings, the yeah, the sort of the, I guess, the audio signature of what it hears around it, and interpret that into a vibe. Like, I don't think that would be a very difficult thing to do for today's AI and for today's devices. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if something like that already existed, where you could just, even just with music, you could sort of, the device could listen to what's going on around it, including music, ambient noise, etc., and sort of, I guess, conclude. Maybe not concludes the right word, but sort of associate its surroundings with a vibe. And then you could take that vibe and sort of feed that into Spotify or Pandora, which I think already kind of does this, where you sort of input a, say like a genre, musical genre, or a hell, even a mood or a vibe. And I think, and again, I think that you basically put those two functionalities together. The ability of a device to listen to its surroundings and sort of gather a vibe, for that, for its setting, and then couple that with, taking that vibe and then sort of coming up with music to fit that vibe. Like I said, I'm pretty sure Pandora has done this for like 10 years, if not Spotify as well. Um, and I mean, and if not those, then hell, I mean, that's kind of how I sort my music in my own sort of manually my own curated, humanly curated manual playlists. I kind of tend to um, organize mine by vibe. In fact, if you guys want to, you guys can actually check out. I think I have most of my Spotify playlists actually on my website. It's a section called Vibes and Spaces, so where I kind of present. One thing I learned a long time ago never to do when you're having a social event or throwing a party: never ever allow people to request fucking songs, because you know I'm trying to play host, and then all of a sudden I'll find myself sort of unwittingly becoming a sort of a cornered DJ with suddenly a lineup of people wanting to request the most basic ass like white people songs ever. um, and that it's very similar to sort of the YouTube black holes that I would often find myself at parties, where you go on YouTube to look something up, and then somebody else would want to find a YouTube video that they really like to share, and soon enough you're like 10 YouTube videos down, down the line, and 20 topics, 20 logical topics away from what the fuck you guys were even talking about in the first place. And suddenly you're, an hour and a half later, like, what the fuck did we just waste our time on again? And then there's me in the background that has to go, ADD alert, ADD alert, ADD alert. And mind you, I think that's really funny when the stoner has to call out the room, call out the ADD alert in the room. But perhaps it's because I'm so used to being that poor bastard myself, and I've just had to learn and train myself onto, basic shit like how to stay on topic in the conversation. Turns out it's a not as common of a skill as you might think it would be in the year 2024. I'll blame it on AI. Why not? Blame everything else on AI. Blame it on AI and blame it on the drugs. Between AI and drugs, we're fucked, humans. Oh, goodness. Anyways, on that note, how long have I rambled off script here? Yeah, it's 10 o'clock. I'm an hour away from the Price is Right. So, on that note, kids, Papa's got to get to the TV and turn on the TiVo and and pretend to myself that Bob Barker still hosts The Price is Right. Actually, on the subject, I should say, I guess on this, while I bounce around topics here aimlessly and ADDly, um, I believe I heard somewhere that Pat Sajak is finally going to have his last episode soon, if not already, of Wheel of Fortune. So I guess mark your calendars, kids, for that milestone. The the end of Pat's. I mean, I can't even imagine what Wheel of Fortune would be like after Pat Sajak and Vanna White. Is Vanna White already gone? No, I don't think so. I'd be pissed if Vanna White died or something and I didn't find out about it. Just like I was pissed when Betty White died and I didn't find out about it. I can't have Vanna and Betty dying without my consent and notification. So, anyways, on the subject of white girls dying at old ages, I guess we'll I guess that seems like a logical place to conclude the broadcast. So on that note, happy hump day, Facebook land. And I did have topics to discuss, but here I am once again autopiloting and not even getting us to a safe landing. So we're just gonna abruptly end the show here. This has been Mike George on this fine hump day morning at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Daylight Time in Columbus, Ohio, 26th of June, 2024. Well, essentially, for the most part, Pride is over, and now we have the finest thing to be proud of coming up in a week or so are the great nation of ours known as the United States of America. So, I remind myself that with pride comes a little bit of patriotism, and with patriotism comes, you know, putting aside your little labels and your selfish little lusts for attention and uniting as a country and finding things out there that are greater than just your lame old self to celebrate. Because, as John F. Kennedy once put it, think not what this country can do for you, but what you can do for this country. And I'm pretty sure by that he meant not endlessly complain on Facebook about politics. So, coming at you live from Columbus, Ohio, from the Oval of The Ohio State University. This is Mike George on this fine Wednesday morning. Happy Hump Day. May your humping be ever so joyful and full of love, and maybe even with a little wet surprise in the end. By that I mean a pop up shower. Wink, wink. Anywho, happy Wednesday. Take care of yourselves and take care of somebody else. A tout à l'heure.